So I am Romain Pelisse. I'm a system engineer here with Red Hat. I've been working for Red Hat for almost for actually over 10 years now. I've done Red Hat in Germany. I'm a French guy living in Germany, in Berlin, and I've done Red Hat over 10 years ago now. But yeah, enough about me. Let's go straight into the topic and start talking about Ansible and middleware. So the first thing is that most likely, if you picked up this talk, you picked it up because there was Ansible in it. So I'm going to assume you are familiar with what Ansible is. You might be less familiar with what middleware is. So I'm going to get you situated with what middleware is by describing it like in a few words. To make it very simple, as the slide said, middleware is plumbing for your application. If you have some kind of technical need for your application, it might translate into either one or several middleware solutions. So if you need to have some kind of transaction manager, you might need a middleware for that. If you want to send some message asynchronously to a remote system, you might write a messaging system for that. If you need to have database access, you might have another middleware for that. So this is this kind of thing. It's like middleware is kind of, living in the application level, which is very important to remember because Ansible, on the other way, is generally working on the infrastructure level. Ansible is all about configuring firewall, setting up systems, network, starting services. So it's a far more low-level approach in comparison to middleware. However, as I just pointed out, this is plumbing. So there is a lot of common commonality between what Ansible does on the infrastructure level and what middleware needs to see happening on the application level. So this is where this commonality is actually useful, because this is where you realize that there is actually a need for automation in middleware. And this is what we're going to discuss here today, on how much middleware needs Ansible to automate some things. Before I move forward from this slide, just one note. There is plenty of middleware software, and middleware is a very, very catch-all term. So there is a lot of things that can be called middleware. In the context of this talk, we are talking about the Red Hat runtime products. So stuff coming out of Red Hat, about Red Hat that we name middleware. So this is mostly Java-based solution. The most famous one is the JBoss EAP app server. We also have JBoss Data Grid. We also have Java Web Server, which is a supported version of Tomcat by Red Hat. We also have Red Hat Single Sign-On. That's actually a middleware solution provided as part of the middleware runtime. So that's what we mean here when we talk about middleware. Let's move to the next one. So now that we have a fair idea of what is middleware, let's look at the trend of the last decades in our industry. To summarize it in a few words, it's all about cloud and automation. Basically, we want to do everything as infrastructure as a code. We want to reduce the number of manual action. We want it to be repeatable in a safe way. And of course, we want it to scale. And if you are familiar with Kubernetes, OpenShift, and many of those solutions, you'll be like, that they are all about that. They're all about infrastructure as a code, reduction, like no manual step, repeatability, and whatever. However, if you know the solution, you might be aware that your current application, what you're running today, or maybe what you're running tomorrow, is not yet able to move to such system. Like not everything can run into a container. Not everything can run on the public cloud for legal reasons, for instance, but there is many other reasons. Some architecture are simply not suitable to be migrated or don't need to. So this is what we are going to talk about today, and this is what we hope to make you, excited about. Is that how can we use Ansible to bring the same level of comfort we have on something like OpenShift or Kubernetes, to bring that in a more like traditional environment, running on VM or maybe even on bare metal, using like not the latest fancy container technology, but maybe the one from yesterday. And how can we still have the same comfort in terms of ops? That's basically what we want to discuss today. And to prolong this idea, let's see a bit. Let's look at why does middleware product needs Ansible, and on the flip side, why Ansible actually need middleware. So for middleware product, it's pretty obvious. First of all, I told you earlier, it's all about plumbing, which means that we need to lay down pipe. And whenever you want in computer science or like in infrastructure, you want to lay down pipe, you want to automate that. You want to do that manually. And there is plenty to automate around middleware solution. You want to deploy the configuration, you want to patch the solution, you want to deploy workloads on it, you want to be able to roll back automatically workload when they're failing, blah and blue and blue. So there is plenty to automate, and Ansible is already bringing you 80% of what you need. So missing 20% we're going to discuss in very soon. Another reason to look into Ansible with middleware is that you may be using some tools that have been doing the work for a few years, but most likely those are outdated or even retired. Red Hat customer were using up until I think last year or 2 years ago. Red Hat customer could still be using JBoss Operation Network to do most of what I've described: configuration, drift management, deployment. JBoss Operation Network has been retired. One of the reasons is, if you ask me, this is my personal opinion, one of the reasons is that Ansible does a far better job than John, so that you just want to use Ansible instead. And so despite that, you might think, hey, maybe there is maybe I don't need to use Ansible because maybe there is a cool new tool I could use. Everything is outdated, but maybe there is something new. Except that everything new is focusing on container. Everything new is for the new kids on the block. So you might not find a solution for you that could work for your environment if it's bare metal or even like VMs. Finally, maybe you already have some automation around your middleware, but most likely this is kind of custom-based, maybe some kind of weird script you wrote with some kind of tool, maybe it's bash script. All of that is brittle, hard to maintain, and it's difficult to hire resources for that. While it's very easy to say, hey, I have a bunch of automation in Ansible, can I hire an Ansible engineer? It's also good for you as a recruiter, but for the one being recruited, it's also good because it's a skill he has is going to be to progress as he is working for you. So that's for the middleware part. Now, if you look at Ansible, why will Ansible need to go into the middleware world? Well, mostly because, as I said, middleware is always about the application. So this is what the business live. If you're running an application somewhere, you're running it for your business. You don't run servers just for the sake of running servers. You're running them because you need them to do some work for your company. And if you manage to put some automation on this level, suddenly Ansible is no longer this tool that makes server happy. It's this tool that makes the system run and makes the critical application business work. So suddenly your boss is not happy about Ansible. It's the boss of your boss, or even the CEO of the company who is happy about Ansible. That's a very, very good way to show all the value of Ansible. So that is for the general presentation. Let's move to the team. Yes, because we are a team. I'm the only one here today, but we are 6, and we are 6 working on this, what we call the Ansible Middleware Initiative, which has for objective something very simple. For every runtime, middleware runtime Red Hat has, we want to provide the best possible integration into Ansible. So this way, if you are familiar with the middleware product, you can simply do everything you need using playbooks. And if you are familiar with Ansible, getting those middleware tools is going to be far more easier, because instead of having to understand how they work, you're going to have a collection or an integration that's going to speak to you like an Ansible native citizen. So just for a side note, I am working with Guido full-time on this initiative, or almost full-time for me. Andrew, Reul, and Arsha are helping us a lot, but they're not full-time on it. And Carlo is managing that. But this is definitely a real initiative. It's funded, and to make it very, very clear, this is not a pet project. It's not me having fun with Ansible on Friday. It used to be the case 2 years ago, but now it's a serious thing. And it's so much serious that we actually have content already out. What do we already have? We already have a complex demo that I'm going to show you using many middleware products. We also have reusable content for you to use. If you need to automate some stuff, you can already use our upstream collection. We have an upstream collection for Apache Tomcat, an upstream collection for Wildfly, which is the upstream of JBoss EAP. And very soon we hope to put upstream collection for Keycloak, the upstream of RHSSO, and for Infinispan, the upstream of DataGrid. But that's not all. We also already have, since last week, we have a certified collection for GWS that you can download and use through Automation Hub, like you would for any certified connection by Ansible. So it's not, this whole talk is not about vaporware, it's about content we have already released and produced. So enough with my me babbling around. I have been actually quite fast. I hope you could follow me. The reason I've been quite fast is that, well, first, I do speak quickly. That's how I speak. But also, I wanted to be fast because I wanted to get to the point where I can show you things. We have enough, talks with slide. So before I jump into the demo, I will show you a picture because, diagram is easier to understand than line of code or whatever. This is the setup I'm going to show you. It's a very, very classical setup for middleware solution. If you have been working remotely with any kind of middleware in the last 10 years, you probably saw something very much like that. At the core of this setup, we have a JBoss EAP cluster. This is where we deploy our app. So we have a demo app I'm going to show you. It's called Kitchen Sink. It's just an address book. We're going to pretend for the purpose of this demo that the address book is like a critical part of your business, and you need to have that running in a super secure way and in super resilient way. So for that, we have a cluster with 6 nodes of EAP. Each of them is running the application. If you're not familiar with EAP clustering, it's all about resilience. It means that if one of the application is failing, the cluster can just recover by forwarding the request to another instance without any data loss. So if you have a customer, like if you have a client connected to an instance and the instance fail while processing the request, another node is going to recover, and the user is never going to realize that there was an issue. Now that's clustering. Of course, because there is 6 nodes, we need something to dispatch the request. So in front of this system, we put JBCS. So what is JBCS? JBoss Core Services. It's just a fancy name to describe the Apache HTTPD server we shipped as part of the GWS subscription. It's a regular HTTPD server that we support, like Red Hat support, except that this one comes with some extra module to communicate with JBoss EAP and GWS. That's all. So we set up that in front of it. It's just doing basic load balancing. It's aware that there is 6 nodes in the cluster, and whenever a request coming, is going to dispatch it to one item of the cluster. I'm going to show you a small demo called Info, in a small app called Info, that's going to validate this environment or make you show how it's working. More classically, behind the cluster, we have data sources, because of course you need to store data sources, like the data in somewhere, so you store them in data sources. And more interestingly, next to the cluster, we have a dedicated instance running Red Hat SSO. Why? Because the application is critical. We need to authenticate people accessing to it. We need to define like specific rights depending on user type and role. And for that, the application is doing zero work. It's just asking RHSSO to do it. And of course, it's not clear on the diagram, but of course, JBCS is also aware of RHSSO, so that if there is a request coming through JBCS, it can be rerouted to RHSSO. And finally, and quite importantly, we have an Ansible automation platform running. I'm going to show that in a minute. And this is how we set up everything. So this architecture is very classical. Again, if you ever did middleware in your life, you have seen something akin to that. The interesting thing here is that it has been installed completely using playbooks. It's coming from scratch. We had like like VMs running bare RHEL 8, like just install on nothing else, and we just run the playbooks. And RHEL 8 with Ansible, of course, and we just run the playbooks. And 20 minutes later on, we have this environment. So let's go to the demo part. Let's show you some stuff where I can click, and it's going to be hopefully a bit more interesting. So here we are. This is our Ansible automation platform. Hopefully, yeah, it's big enough for you to read. So as I told you, we had a bunch of physical machines. So let's first look at our host. Well, I say physical, I mean VM, sorry, but So as I told you, we have a JBCS instance. There is one node running JBCS, and whenever there is a request coming to JBCS, it's going to be dispatched to the other system. We have a Keycloak system, of course. We have an instance where we're running our RHSSO. We have Postgres. I told you earlier we have Postgres. And we have 3 instances called Wi-Fi 1, 2, or 3. It's called Wildfly because Wildfly is the upstream name of JBoss EAP, and this demo can be deployed and run with both products or upstream project. And so you might, if you have very much follow what I've said, you might wonder like, hey, wait a minute, there is 3 Wildfly instances. You said it was a 6-node cluster. Yes, because we did a little trick. For each instances, we are deploying 2 EAP instances. So it's 2 EAP instances running side by side, and 3 box make 6 nodes. This way, if one of the box fail, you still have 4 instances running. And if on one node, one of the instances fail, you can still use the physical, like the box underneath it with the other instance. As classically as everything in Ansible, you can wrap those instances into an inventory, which we did. Here it is. We have credential attached to this inventory and this demo. So this demo is called treetrain. So everything is prefixed with treetrain. And those credentials allow Ansible automation platform to connect to the remote server. And finally, as we should have, we have a project on GitHub. So we can basically push change to our playbooks. And this Ansible automation platform can fetch it and update the actual system. Again, if you are familiar with Ansible, this is not like, this should be very straightforward. Here it is, we have our job templates. The template is basically the way we define which playbook we want to run and how to run them. The most important for this demo is a demo job template, which basically execute the whole playbook we have written and install everything, or at least check that everything is in the right state. We also have community playbook where we can run only JBoss, only Keycloak, only Postgres, and so on. Let's take a look at the last run of the demo playbook, because that's very much interesting. So as you can see, we ran the demo playbook recently. It was successful. I'm going to directly go to the end of the run because I want to show you how much work has been done by this playbook. So if you look at this playbook, you can see that a lot has happened. Actually, it took it 11 minutes to run while it did barely nothing. Like everything was just checking the stats. But there is so much work being done here that to complete a full run, it needs 10 minutes. So what are we doing? There is 50 tasks on JBoss. There is 100 tasks on Keycloak. And more importantly, there is 150 tasks on the Wildfly instances. That's a lot of tasks. We are doing a lot of things here. And of course, because we have automated everything. So just to give you a little tour of, what kind of operation we did. So of course, when we started, we do some kind of verification, like are we in a good state? Do we have like all the nodes being registered in RH and being like properly configured RHEL instance? Then we move to JBoss install. So there it is. There is already something quite interesting. Middleware automation is our upstream organization that releases product on the upstream on Ansible Galaxy, and we are already using one of the collection from this upstream organization. It's called the Red Hat CSP download. It's actually also available through, also certified and also available through Automation Hub. And this Red Hat CSP download is doing something very simple but very useful. It allows you to fetch zips from RH. So you can go to RH and say, hey, Red Hat, I'm this customer. I would like to get my zip file for JBoss EAP 7.4. Here it is. That might sound a bit simple. And if you are a farmer on the infrastructure side, you might wonder, like, why do you not use RPM? Well, because in middleware, people don't often use RPM. For many reasons, they use zip file at the beginning of their automation. So being able to just say, hey, I want to grab my zip file and then do something with it is very helpful. And this is what we're doing here. So we grab the zip file. So at this point, we install the collection. Later on, we're going to grab the zip file. Let me scroll down a bit to show you that. Here it is. Here we download the JBoss core services from CSP. Then we unarchive it, we install it. And interesting part, we start the service. Because for every collection, for every middleware product, you're going to see today in this demo, we have done the systemd integration. So everything is started and stopped by systemd like a regular system service. It's pretty cool because quite often middleware teams are not very keen on doing that. And so you end up running system, or at least I've seen customer running system where the middleware product is not a regular service. It's not like, oh, stop, start JBoss EAP. It's some kind of working differently. So in this case, you can just do it. And the playbook is taking care of doing all the configuration for it. So on, so on, and so on. I'm not going to walk through all the tasks. It will be boring. So let's take a look now at the first application I mentioned to you. I mentioned to you there is a small info application, which basically is there to demonstrate that the cluster is working. So it's going to be very silly. I'm just going to refresh that. And as you can see, every time I refresh, there is a small change in the output because it's always replying on which nodes our request actually ended up. So in this case, my last request ended up on the third Wildfly node. And it also mentioned which instance I'm running on. So in this case, it's running on the first instance of the third box. And if I do a refresh, Now I have landed on the second instance of the first box. It's a very silly demo app. It's just cool to know that the cluster is working. Now let's try to do something more interesting. As I mentioned to you, we have deployed an application called Kitchen Sink. It's basically I have to go to the SSO and log out all the session again, something like that. Come on. Up. Let me try to do that again. You still see me? Perfect. It's annoying. Okay, well, that's disappointing. Yeah, here it is. So let's look at an admin. So of course, the last session has not been logged out properly. So I need to go and do some cleanup on RHSSO. That's fine. So I'm logging on RHSSO. My bad. Wrong password. So I'm logging in my single solution, and I'm going to remove the last user so I can log in the application properly. It's taking a little bit of time. Also is not running. So yeah, of course, this demo is not running on the most powerful hardware, as you can imagine. So here we are. We have more user. Up. Let's go for the session. Up. Let's log out all. And hopefully now I should be able to connect to Kitchen Sink. Still not. Annoying as hell. Okay. Well, anyway, that's going to be another way of showing what I wanted to show you. So because we have an issue with the session in Keycloak, what I'm going to do is going to show you that this is not vaporware again. I'm going to break something, run the demo playbook, and so that you can see that the demo playbook is going to fix it. How I'm going to do that? I have a small template here, which is doing something very simple. It's stopping the SSO service. Again, as we did all the systemd integration, all that this playbook is doing is connecting to the Keycloak host, running systemctl stop Keycloak, and then the RHSSO solution is done. Up. Let's do a quick test about that. As you can see, change. Keycloak has been disabled. Now let's try to connect to Keycloak again. I can connect to it because the SSO is broken. Let's try to go to the application, and normally the application will, wrong URL. The application will reply, hey, I can't work because I'm redirecting you to Keycloak, and Keycloak isn't working. Okay, then let's fix it. It's very simple. We go to our template book and we fire the demo playbook. Up. So little interesting point here. As you can see, it's asking you for a password for RHN because the playbook needs to connect to RHN to grab the zip file. Fortunately, because we already did all of the install, we don't really use those. So I'm going to put demo like a stupid value here, just that the playbook is happy about having that defined. And we fire the playbook. So this is a big playbook I mentioned. So it's going to start by checking that the system is in the right state, that every host is having the right configuration and subscription. Again, like what I showed you a few minutes ago. Now it's going to move and start installing GBCS. As you can see, it's working on GBCS host, checking that the GBCS hosts are correct. Everything is fine with GBCS host. Everything is working perfectly smoothly. Then we go to Keycloak very soon. No, it's finishing GBCS right now, so opening port and stuff. Now it's going to start on Keycloak. Yes, it's going to start on Keycloak, and you're going to see that the next output is going to spot. Okay, the next one is going to spot that Keycloak is not running, and it should, and it's going to correct that and start running Keycloak. I think this is coming up soon. Reload system, yes, after that. Start Keycloak. So this is going to be changed. Now Keycloak is started, so I'm just going to go back to my application, to my Kitchen Sink application, and hopefully this time it will redirect me to the right URL. Hopefully, still not. Okay, but anyway, let's go for that. As you can see, Keycloak is again running, so we can connect to it and we can manage it. So of course, it's a very like it's a very silly issue. It's not like, we just stopped the service and restarted it, so it's not very fancy. But the point is that like the system has been like kept in state by the playbook, who has been able to understand that the service was done and to can maintain that this way. Well, up until now there is no question, but please feel free to ask any question. Before replying to the question, I will come back to my slide to give you like a few takeaways. Up here we are. Let me switch back to present mode. One more slide. So if you have followed this talk very not carefully on doing something else at the same time, or check your email, like this is the 1 minute you have to listen to, because I'm going to recap everything that I've been trying to demonstrate. So this is the one slide you really need to listen to. So basically, what is to remember here? What is the main takeaway? The main takeaway is that automation is for everyone, not only for container, not only for Kubernetes, not only for clouds. You don't need to wait to automate things. You can automate your middleware workloads with Ansible right now. You can also make your application scale right now, not someday in some other environment where everything will be better. Right now, you can take Ansible and help your application to scale. To scale the way you're making it scale on OpenShift, like you will need to do some work to do that. There will be some playbooks to be written, but you have all the tools to get it there. Another thing, as I hope I've shown you, is that you can build automation that are far more sustainable and easier to achieve with Ansible. Ansible has all the primitives you need to build like a runnable playbooks. It has modules for many stuff you want to do in automation. And by default, Ansible is repeatable. You get that for free with Ansible. You don't get that for free with your script. If you don't believe me, if you're like, I don't believe that this Ansible thing will work for middleware, well, don't believe me, believe Red Hat, because we are actually telling you that. If you go and ask on the Red Hat knowledge base, what do I do now that JBoss Operation Network is being discontinued? The first answer is going to be, hey, go take a look in Ansible Automation Platform, because that's basically the new way of doing that. And of course, you can also go to OpenShift, but as described earlier, if you can't go to OpenShift, you need to do something, and this is where Ansible is coming up. I think this is mostly it. I have one more slide. So of course, if you want to have like a bit more information, you can go on our GitHub. The demo is on GitHub. The reusable content is on GitHub. The certified content is on Automation Hub. We've been blogging a lot in the last month to try to get people a bit interested and have all the information you need to have to play with our product or what we did. So you have a lot of blogs. The first one is very interesting. It's from the open. Well, I wrote it, so it's very self-serving, interesting. But it's basically a high-level overview of why do you need Ansible middleware. Like if you need to convince your boss or the boss of your boss to go to somewhere with Ansible, this is what you may want him to read, him or her. And the other blogs are more like if you want to go and play with it, like how do I do automation around Wildfly with Ansible? That's the second link. How do I automate my Apache Tomcat deployment with the Ansible collection? That's the second link for it, and so on and so on. So I hope it was interesting. Sadly, I don't see any question in the chat, so I hope that I'm going to lie to myself and think that this is because I was super clear. If it was too fast for you, feel free to download the replay and listen to it like slowly, like you can reduce the speed of the video. I have no issue with that. I know I speak quickly, and I often actually do the opposite with people who speak too slowly. I download the video and put it to 110%, so it's faster and I can follow. So I will certainly not hold you to fault about that. And still no question. So I hope it was interesting, and I wish you guys a very good. I think this is the summit is finished, but I hope you enjoy the summit and this presentation. And have a good one. Bye.